Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Shirley Lin. Now, I'm really honored today to be meeting with Ruby Chen, who is the co-founder and CEO of CNEX Foundation, as well as CNEX Studio. So let's welcome Ruby. Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Shirley. It's a pleasure to be here with you on your program.
Yes, I'm feeling really honored to be able to meet you. But I understand that CNEX produces documentaries, mostly about China's history and culture and whatnot. But we'll learn all about that in just a moment.
Sure.
So we are going to start off with you telling us a story that has made an impact on you, right? Yeah, you want to start off by telling that story before we get to know more who Ruby is and everything. Yeah.
Sure. I'm by definition a pure Taiwanese. I'm the seventh generation of immigration from Fujian province. My grandfather used to tell me that I'm the seventh generation from Fujian and into Taiwan.
Wow, you keep track of that. Seventh generation. Okay.
Exactly. My grandfather's very proud of his own career and what he has done for the family. My father, moved from central Taiwan to Taipei, and got married with my mom, and I was born back home in my grandfather's house, and then I totally grew up in Taipei. So by the time I was about 8 to 9 years old, my father one day came home with this whole set of books. I still remember it's 东方少年世界伟人名著. So it's kind of like all the great people of the world's story.
Wow.
I think it's a set of, I can't remember exactly, maybe around 30 or something books
about how old were
great
you
people.
Then?
I was like 9 years old.
Oh, okay.
So you can see my father's great aspiration of wanting me, or try to bring me up as someone who can be something. I read really fast those stories of great people. I, of course, was inspired by many of them. But I think among all these great people, fantastic stories. When you grew up, you understand, these are beautified stories for kids. But when you were little, you kind of like totally fascinated.
Yeah, believed every word.
Believed every word in it and aspired to be one of, maybe one day to be someone like one of them. And I was particularly inspired by the female characters.
Oh, I'm sure.
So kind of like the scientist, Nightingale.
Nightingale.
Nightingale, and the whatever, and then of course all the great people, Genghis Khan, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, of course, and many others. So for me, I think that was like my first global exposure in that sense, because I think back then the Taiwan education doesn't really tell you that many things about different things around the world.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like my value system was first seeded back then.
Okay. In what way? You just know you want to become someone great?
Not so much, but it's more like how these people used to overcome the difficulties and challenges in their life, and they overcame, they transformed themselves and became someone or something great for the people. And I think it's not about being great yourself, it's about being able to help people, being able to make a difference.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's start from when you were little and see how well you did every step of the way then.
Still working on it.
You're very humble. So, are you the only child in the family?
I'm in fact the eldest.
Okay.
Okay. My grandfather is the only son in the family.
Oh.
My father is the only son in the family. Oh. My father has a elder sister, but in the traditional Chinese Taiwanese system,
yes,
boys count and girls doesn't.
Don't. Yeah, right.
So that's boys don't. Boys has their responsibilities and accountabilities towards the family.
Yes.
Girls are someone who will be married to someone else in a different family to take care of someone else.
Right.
So, like parents used to joke about, oh, I'm raising someone's wife when they have a daughter.
Right.
Anyways, I was born to the family as the eldest. In my sibling, I had, after that, a younger brother and 2 younger sisters. Mm-hmm. But when you can imagine when I was born, my grandfather and my whole family was very anxious. They were all hoping, I think, secretly wanted to have a boy.
Right.
But I was a girl.
Right.
Nevertheless, I was very happy because I think I grew up in a lot of love. Because my grandparents decided that I was a lovely kid, and so my parents, of course, they moved from Zhanghua to Taipei, and to try to build their own career here. My father was in business, so I was, grew up as daughter of a business person. Mm-hmm. My father is a very smart and not so hardworking, but very smart business person.
Okay.
Well, I think, in my view, it's not so hardworking, but I don't know. Maybe he would disagree with me. So I grew up learning, many things in school, of course, but also from my family, where I saw my parents were doing business. Sometimes not so successful, sometimes successful. And when he's not so successful, my mother kicks in and do like knitting works or making small money to help support the family. So
wow.
I grew up seeing many things in the common life of citizens.
Oh, all right. So you were telling me that you weren't really into studies. Am I right? You weren't really a great student. Or maybe just according to your point of view, though.
Could be.
Your parents probably thought you would.
But I always felt like if I would work a little bit harder, I might be, doing something different every steps of my life. But because I'm the way I am, I think I listen very carefully in the class. All these classes, I listen very carefully what the teacher had to taught us. Get impatient once he had to say the second time, because he's trying to make people understand. So you can understand that he's trying to tell the story back and forth,
Yes.
And then if he sees confused faces, he might do it the third time. I easily got annoyed and say, yeah, I understand that. Stop, move on to something new. But anyways, that's how I was. And the reason I say I didn't study hard was I was much more interested in reading other books than the textbooks.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. When I bring when my kids were younger, and I'll take them to the library, once they're settled down and everything, I would wonder what I'm going to pick up and read myself. But you know what? I always go for encyclopedias. Right. I always like to read encyclopedias because I like to learn things that are not taught in school.
Exactly. So perhaps when I say I didn't work so hard, was what I meant was I didn't do it the way the adults would like us to. Mm. But I sort of like explored the world in my own way. Mm. But anyways, so I got into junior high school level. Back in our days, I was supposed to go to these composive high school. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then my father decided I should go and take tests and exams to get into these private junior high school because he believes those were better. I got myself into Wellesley's Girls High in the junior high school level. That's where my world, the window to the world opened again. Because I was lucky, and I think I was really blessed to have very good teachers, there. And then our schoolmaster, it's wonderful lady.
Yeah, that's so important, to have really good teachers when you were a child. in your upbringing. When you grow older, you never forget the contribution that they gave to you in your life, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
that is great. So, I wonder just how well you speak English without having studied abroad. How did this happen?
It really owing to Mrs. Williamson. She's my first English teacher. She's a missionary from the U.S. And our school back then, the Wellesley Girls High School, was lucky enough to have quite a lot of missionary teachers from the States. And she was very, very tough.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to speak even one word of Chinese in the class.
Oh,
and
I think that's good. That's a good practice.
It's as if you were immersed in a full English-speaking environment, learning ABC, all the alphabets to start with, but not saying a Chinese word.
Right. That's
so
great.
I think that gives me a very good basics. You got probably good pronunciation, the right way to think about English, or not memorizing all the vocabularies or things. Of course, we have to do the textbook, but we were more on the side, learning many things about the U.S., English as a language, than trying to use English as a tool to pass your exam. I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's great. So no wonder that's why, I guess that's why you landed on the job that you did at McKinsey, which is one of the biggest,
Right.
international management consulting firms. And do you think that's why?
Well, that's
a big jump from...
That's part of the reason. But I think, beyond just good English, there are so many other things in between. After Wellesley's junior high school graduation, I did my high school exam. In my view, not so good because I got myself into the third, girls' high school, which is Jingmei Nuzhong in Taiwan. And I was hoping I could get into either the first one or the second one.
Right.
So you could, imagine for a young girl back in that age, I was quite frustrated.
You had great ambition for a girl at your age, I guess.
I guess so, but that was something. So I decided to go back to study high school in Wellesley, and then my father convinced me to take a different path. So I went to study in Mingchuan Girls College, and I majored in international trading. That got me into the, about 8 years before I got into McKinsey & Company. I was doing international business in different shipping companies, multinational operations in Taiwan for all these years. And at one point I got married and I had a son, so I quit my job and I learned to do simultaneous interpretation for all these international conferences. So I quit my 9-to-5 job and then I became an interpreter for conferences. And that's how I got myself to know, McKinsey and how they got to know me. So I was doing freelancing for them, and that's how it got myself into McKinsey the first place, despite the fact that I tried to resist that because I wanted to stay, to have the freedom of being a freelancer.
A freelancer doing what?
Simultaneous interpretation in conferences.
You like that, huh? You enjoy that.
Very challenging.
Yes, I know.
And it was very, very fun. And you get to learn so much different things because you will be doing conferences from international business to economics to some political issues, environmental issues, etc. So for me, you always have to prepare well before you get into that small, tiny interpreter's booth.
The booth.
And then you have to study hard, all the fundamentals. So I guess that's why when McKinsey met me, they really liked me.
I see. But I'm thinking back in those days, I don't think there are that many multinational companies around Taiwan, though. But for you to have the opportunity to be able to work in that kind of environment, and then going on to simultaneous interpretation, which I'm sure was not that common back then, that you had all these opportunities, which is really rare. But these are great opportunities.
These are great opportunities, great challenges. And I think I, of course, worked very hard. But I think I was also blessed and lucky.
Did you get formal training in simultaneous interpretation? I mean, back then, there weren't such thing as courses in this.
I did. I went to, back then it was called CPC, China Productivity Center. It was a subsidiary under the Ministry of Economics, 中国生产力中心, under Ministry of Economics. And then they have this 6-month program. So what I did was we drove myself from after the work, 6 o'clock to the class. And I do that for 6 months. Other than the first 2 bits, I was not in Taiwan, but 2 weeks I was not in Taiwan. Then I think I was there every classes. I passed the exam that you have to take after you finish that program. So you have a certificate saying that you did the program. You have to pass another test so that you can start working in these conferences.
I guess you don't have time for that now, do you? Simultaneous interpretation.
I can do that.
Yeah, you can.
Still.
You still do that?
No, I don't do it anymore as a profession, but I still occasionally had to help people communicate.
Sure. Yes, that is a lot of fun, but it's a lot of challenge. It's a lot of pressure, and I enjoy doing that too. And I think I'm better off doing simultaneous than. What's the other one? Which is like
the consecutive interpretation.
It's a consecutive interpretation.
Right.
Because you forget what was said before.
You have to take notes.
I know, but I never took formal training. So, with shorthand maybe or whatever, I never took that. But of course, I've got colleagues here who actually came over after getting a degree in interpretation and translation from, I think, Shida,
Yeah. Now there are more schools teaching this. Yeah.
That is right.
And there's more demand. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, that is amazing. Yeah, that simultaneous interpretation is a lot of fun. I do agree.
Yeah, I did it for a few years before I got into McKinsey, and then I continued to do that because
for McKinsey too.
For McKinsey, because McKinsey just opened the office in Taipei, and then 2 years down the road, we started to open offices in China. So I also was, part of that McKinsey earlier spearhead. Developing clients and developing McKinsey's businesses in China.
Yeah. Well, I think the way to keep up is to read just, don't be biased, but reading all sorts of information, reading all sorts of magazines and books and whatnot to help you equip for this kind of job, simultaneous interpretation, right?
Right. And I have that interest of the word.
Yeah, you love reading.
So it's kind of like, I don't take it so much as a work for me. It's honestly for me to know more about the word, and that's and I think that's a lot of fun.
That is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break here before we go on to talk about whatever that Ruby is doing right now, which got nothing to do with what we just talked about, or even McKinsey. It's after McKinsey, so we'll take a break here.